Buffalo soldiers betrayed faith warriors. July 28, 1866, Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. 50 black men stand in formation under a blazing sun, wearing Union Army blue for the first time as peacetime soldiers. These men had just survived the Civil War. They'd been freed from slavery barely a year before, and now they're taking an oath to defend the nation that had enslaved them. They can smell the leather of their new boots, feel the weight of their rifles, hear the stars and stripes snapping in the prairie wind. Many of them are singing Amazing Grace quietly under their breath because they believe God has led them to this moment. They believe that serving their country means earning real freedom, real dignity, real honor for themselves and their children. They have no idea that for the next 85 years, America will use them, betray them, steal from them, and then try to erase them from history completely. Their achievements buried, their pensions stolen, their medals given to white officers who did nothing, their names forgotten in every history book your children would ever read, until right now. What happened over the next century is one of the greatest betrayals in American military history. This is the story they buried. This is your stolen legacy. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how Buffalo soldiers won the American West, fighting 127 documented battles, while white officers took every single credit. You will know how the military systematically denied them promotions and pensions and public recognition even though they earned 13 medals of honor. You will know how their Christian faith sustained them through absolute terror, how they sang hymns, while white civilians in so-called peaceful towns tried to lynch them while they wore the uniform. And you will understand how this betrayal connects directly to military discrimination happening right now in 2025, to stolen veteran benefits, to the systemic racism your family still faces today. And after this, you will never hear someone say thank you for your service the same way again, because you'll know the truth. This is not ancient history. Your grandfather might have been a Buffalo soldier. Your great-grandmother might have been a military wife stationed at Fort Davis, Texas, watching her husband fight for a country that spit on both of them. This story lives in your bloodline. The theft is still happening. And today you take back what they stole. Your history, your pride, your inheritance. Let me take you back to 1866. The Civil War just ended. 200,000 black men had fought for the Union, proving they could soldier as well as any white man proving they could die for freedom, just like anyone else. The nation could not deny this anymore, so Congress passed an act creating 6 all-black military regiments: the 9th Cavalry, the 10th Cavalry, the 24th Infantry, the 25th Infantry, and 2 others that would later be disbanded. This had never happened before. Black men officially enlisted in the United States Army during peacetime. It should have been a triumph. It was a trap. Because here's what that 1866 Army Reorganization Act also said. These black soldiers could only serve west of the Mississippi River. They could not be stationed in white communities back east. Why? Because white Americans did not want to see armed black men walking through their towns. They did not want their children seeing black soldiers with authority and weapons and dignity. And so they shipped them to the most dangerous, most brutal, most isolated parts of the American frontier. Places where the mission was nearly impossible and survival was never guaranteed. And here's the other thing that 1866 law established. Every single officer commanding these black troops had to be white. Black men could fight, black men could die, but black men could not lead. Not officially. Not in the eyes of the United States Army. And some white officers refused the assignment entirely. George Armstrong Custer, the famous cavalry leader, turned down command of black regiments even though it meant giving up a promotion. He would rather sacrifice his career than serve alongside black soldiers. Let that sink in. The military created these positions knowing they were second class from day one. knowing they were designed to use black men as expendable tools on the frontier, knowing they would never give them the recognition, the rank, or the respect they earned. But here is what the military did not expect. Those black soldiers became some of the finest fighting forces America ever had. They called them Buffalo Soldiers. The name came from Native American tribes who fought against them. Some say it was because of their dark curly hair that resembled a buffalo's mane. Others say it was because they fought with the same fierce determination and resilience as a buffalo that refuses to go down. Either way, the soldiers took that name and wore it with pride. They adopted the buffalo as their symbol. They understood what it meant: strength, endurance, survival. But let me be very clear about something before we go further. The Buffalo Soldiers fought against Native American tribes. They were used as instruments of westward expansion, a policy that destroyed indigenous peoples and stole their land. This is a complicated legacy. Black soldiers fighting for a country that oppressed them while being used to oppress another group. That tension is real. That moral complexity is real. And we have to hold both truths. Buffalo soldiers were warriors of incredible courage, and they were also used by an empire that harmed everyone who was not white. Keep that in mind as we go forward. Now let me tell you what these men actually did. Between 1866 and the 1890s, Buffalo soldiers served throughout the Southwest and the Great Plains, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Oklahoma, Kansas, Montana. Their mission: protect white settlers moving west, escort mail routes so communication could happen, build roads and forts in the middle of nowhere, fight against Native American resistance, pursue outlaws and bandits, patrol the Mexican border, map uncharted territory. They did everything. They fought in 127 documented battles. They suffered some of the highest casualty rates of any units in the Army. They operated in 120-degree heat with no water for days. They marched through blizzards in the Rockies with inadequate clothing. They were given the worst equipment, the worst horses, the worst rations, and they performed better than almost any white regiment in the same conditions. 13 Buffalo soldiers earned the Medal of Honor, the nation's highest military award for bravery. 13 men whose courage was so undeniable that even a racist military establishment could not ignore it. But here is what you were never taught. For every one of those 13 men, there were probably 50 more who deserved that medal, but never received it, because their white commanding officers took credit for their actions. Let me tell you about the first one. His name was Sergeant Emmanuel Stantz. May 20th, 1870. Fort McKavett, Texas. Sergeant Stantz is leading a small detachment of 10 soldiers from the 9th Cavalry on patrol. They get word that a group of Apache warriors, about 20 of them, have raided a nearby settlement, stolen horses, and kidnapped 2 children. Stantz makes a decision. His orders are to patrol, not to engage, but he is not going to let those children disappear. He takes his 10 men and tracks the Apache raiders for hours across brutal Texas terrain. When he finds them, he is outnumbered 2-1. He does not care. Stantz sets up an ambush. His men open fire. The Apache warriors are caught off guard, and in the chaos, Stantz's soldiers recover the stolen horses and rescue both children. Stantz himself is wounded during the fight, but refuses to fall back. He stays in command, makes sure every one of his men and both children get back to the fort safely. For this action, Emmanuel Stantz became the first Buffalo soldier to receive the Medal of Honor. It should have been front-page news. It should have made him a household name. White newspapers buried the story. If they mentioned it at all, it was in the back pages with barely a paragraph. Think about this. He saved white children from captivity, and white newspapers refused to print his name. This is how the erasure started. Not with violence, with silence. Now let me tell you about a man whose story will make your blood boil. His name was Henry Ossian Flipper, and he made history in 1877 as the first black man to graduate from West Point Military Academy. Do you understand what that means? West Point was the most elite military institution in America. It produced generals, war heroes, presidents. And Henry Flipper walked into that place in 1873, one of the first black cadets ever admitted. For 4 years, white cadets refused to speak to him. They would not sit with him at meals. They would not acknowledge him in the hallways. They sabotaged his equipment. They tried to get him expelled with false accusations, and Henry Flipper endured all of it with dignity and excellence. He graduated in 1877, ranked 50th out of 76 cadets. Not at the top, but he made it. Against everything designed to break him, he made it. The Army assigned him to the 10th Cavalry at Fort Davis, Texas, and Flipper excelled. He was not just a soldier, he was a trained engineer. He designed and built a drainage system at Fort Davis that solved a major problem with standing water and disease. They called it Flipper's Ditch. That drainage system still exists today. You can go to Fort Davis National Historic Site right now and see the work he did with his own hands in 1880. He was competent. He was respected by the enlisted men. He was everything an officer should be. And that terrified his white commanding officer, a man named Colonel William Shafter. Shafter could not stand the idea of a black officer succeeding under his command. So in 1881, Shafter accused Flipper of embezzling nearly $4,000 from the post-commissary funds. The accusation was false. Flipper had made a bookkeeping error, that is all. His friends offered to cover the shortage immediately. It did not matter. Shafter wanted him destroyed. They convened a court-martial, an all-white military jury. No black officers existed to defend him. One white officer, Colonel Benjamin Grierson, wrote letters defending Flipper's character, insisting the charges were baseless. It changed nothing. Henry Flipper was convicted of conduct unbecoming an officer. He was dishonorably discharged in 1882, the first West Point graduate in history to receive that punishment. He spent the rest of his life fighting to clear his name. He became a successful mining engineer and surveyor. He worked in Mexico and South America and the American West. He wrote books. He tried again and again to get the Army to reverse his discharge. They refused. Henry Flipper died in 1940, 58 years after being wrongfully discharged. His name was not cleared until 1976, when the Army reviewed his case and changed his discharge to honorable. 36 years after his death. But even that was not enough. It took until 1999 for President Bill Clinton to issue a full pardon admitting that Flipper had been destroyed by racism and false charges. 117 years too late. The first black West Point graduate. Destroyed by a white officer who could not stand to see him succeed. Remember that pattern. We are going to see it again and again and again. Now let me tell you about Buffalo soldiers in World War II, because this is where the betrayal gets even more vicious. By 1944, America is fighting Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. The military is still segregated. Black soldiers serve in all black units under white officers. One of those units is the 92nd Infantry Division, sent to fight in Italy. They land in Tuscany and begin pushing German forces north. These men are fighting fascism in Europe, while their families back home are living under Jim Crow fascism in America. Think about that. They are risking their lives to defeat Hitler's racism while being terrorized by American racism. And they do it anyway. The 92nd Infantry Division helps liberate the city of Lucca, Italy, from Nazi occupation. When they march into that city, Italian civilians weep with joy. They hug these black American soldiers. They bring them food and wine. They treat them like the heroes they are. And the soldiers of the 92nd sing hymns as they advance. They sing before going into battle. They pray in foxholes under artillery fire. These are men of deep Christian faith who believe God has brought them through slavery, through segregation, through everything for a purpose. And that purpose is to fight for freedom, even when their own country denies it to them. But here is what you were not taught. While the 92nd Infantry Division is fighting Nazis in Italy, back in the United States, the military is humiliating black soldiers in training camps. In El Paso, Texas, when black soldiers ate in the mess hall, white commanders ordered them to put up curtains so that white soldiers would not have to look at them while they ate. Read that again. Black men training to fight and die for America had to eat behind curtains so white soldiers would not be offended by their presence. And after the war, when those soldiers came home, what happened? Italy honors them. The city of Lucca holds annual ceremonies to this day, remembering the black American soldiers who freed them from Nazi occupation. You can go to Lucca right now and see memorials to the 92nd Infantry Division. America. No memorials, no parades, no national recognition. Italy remembers. Italy celebrates. America forgot. Why? Because acknowledging black soldiers' heroism would require acknowledging that black people deserve equality. And America was not ready for that in 1945. It is barely ready now. Let me tell you about another group of invisible warriors, the Montford Point Marines. In 1942, the Marine Corps was the last branch of the military to accept black recruits. They did it because President Franklin Roosevelt forced them to. The Marines did not want black men. They made that very clear. So when they finally had to accept them, they created a completely separate training facility. Montford Point, North Carolina. If you were black and wanted to be a Marine, that is the only place you could train. White Marine recruits went to Paris Island, the prestigious Maine training base. Black recruits went to Montford Point, a hastily built camp with inferior facilities and the harshest conditions the Marines could design. They wanted to break these men. They wanted them to fail so they could say, "See, we told you, black men cannot be Marines." But the men of Montford Point did not break. They became some of the toughest, most disciplined Marines in the Corps. They served in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, and they were discriminated against every single step of the way. Even after President Truman officially integrated the military in 1948, these men faced racism from white Marines who did not want to serve with them. One of those Marines, Master Gunnery Sergeant Robert Reed, said this years later, "We fought the enemy overseas, and we fought racism at home. We never stopped fighting." Another Marine captain, Ed Hicks, who joined in 1948, said that even after integration, black Marines were passed over for promotions, given the worst assignments, and treated like second-class soldiers. Sergeant Joseph Bazile, who served in Vietnam, said it plainly, "We fought, we bled. We came home to discrimination. Again." The Montford Point Marines did not receive proper recognition until 2012, when Congress finally awarded them the Congressional Gold Medal, 70 years after they first served. Most of them were dead by then. And even now, most Americans have never heard of them. Everyone knows about the Tuskegee Airmen. Everyone knows about Buffalo Soldiers, at least the name. But Montford Point Marines erased. If you have never heard of them, that is by design. They erased this history. Now let me take you back to the 9th and 10th Cavalry, the original Buffalo Soldier regiments. Let me tell you what they actually accomplished and how America repaid them. From 1866 to the 1890s, these two regiments fought 127 documented engagements across the American West. They had the lowest desertion rate in the entire Army. Think about that. These men who had every reason to abandon a country that treated them like trash stayed loyal. They had the highest re-enlistment rate. When their terms of service ended, they signed up again. Why? Because for many of them, the military was the only place they could earn a steady wage, learn skills, and have any measure of dignity. It was a trap, but it was the best option they had, and they performed miracles with it. Let me tell you about one nightmare they survived. In 1877, Captain Nicholas Nolan of the 10th Cavalry led a detachment of Buffalo soldiers and white officers into West Texas on a patrol mission. They were supposed to be gone a few days, but their guide, a man named Jose Tafoya, either got lost or deliberately led them astray. For 86 hours, these men wandered the Texas desert with no water. Imagine that. 3.5 days under a blazing sun, no water, watching your fellow soldiers collapse. 4 men died of dehydration. Several others nearly died. The only reason any of them survived is because the Buffalo soldiers refused to give up. They kept moving, kept searching, and finally found a water source. When they returned to base, the Army blamed Tafoya, but did nothing to honor the soldiers who survived through sheer willpower. Just another mission. Just another day. Except 4 men died and nobody cared. In 1898, the Spanish-American War breaks out. The 9th and 10th Cavalry are sent to Cuba to fight Spanish forces. And this is where one of the most famous battles in American history happens. San Juan Hill. You know that name because of Theodore Roosevelt and his Rough Riders. Roosevelt became a national hero for charging up that hill. They made paintings of him, wrote books about him. He rode that fame all the way to the presidency. But here is what actually happened. Roosevelt's Rough Riders were pinned down by Spanish gunfire. They were about to be slaughtered. The 9th and 10th Cavalry charged up that hill and saved them. Buffalo soldiers broke the Spanish line. Buffalo soldiers took the hill. Buffalo soldiers saved Theodore Roosevelt's life and the lives of his men, and Theodore Roosevelt took all the credit. In his autobiography, he barely mentioned the black soldiers. When he did, it was dismissive, calling them adequate support. The history books wrote the Rough Riders into legend and erased the Buffalo soldiers completely. That is how it works. Black soldiers do the fighting. White officers get the glory. In 1916, the Buffalo soldiers were deployed again this time, chasing Pancho Villa into Mexico during the punitive expedition. It was brutal, dangerous work pursuing a guerrilla leader through hostile territory. They did it. They tracked Villa across the Mexican desert for months. Did you learn about that in school? Did anyone ever tell you that Buffalo soldiers were part of one of the last major military operations on horseback? No, because they erased it. And then came World War I. By this point, the Buffalo Soldier regiments had been serving for over 50 years. They had proven themselves in every possible way. And President Woodrow Wilson, one of the most racist presidents in American history, decided they were not good enough to fight in Europe under American command. Wilson loved the Confederacy. He screened the film Birth of a Nation in the White House, a movie glorifying the Ku Klux Klan. This is the man making decisions about black soldiers. So when America entered World War I, Wilson and his generals decided that black combat units would not serve under American commanders. Instead, they loaned them to France. That is right. The United States military took black regiments, handed them over to the French army, and let France command them. Because American generals would rather give up authority than let black soldiers fight under the American flag with dignity. The French treated them better than America ever did. French commanders were shocked at how well-trained and courageous these soldiers were. The French government awarded over 170 medals to black American soldiers, including the Croix de Guerre, one of France's highest military honors. And when those soldiers came home to America after the war, they were not celebrated. They were lynched. Black soldiers returning from World War I were attacked by white mobs. Some were lynched while still wearing their uniforms. The message was clear. You might have fought for freedom in Europe, but you will never have it here. Do you see the pattern now? Every era. Same betrayal. They fight. They win. Foreign countries honor them. America buries them. Let me show you just how systematic this betrayal was, because what happened to individual soldiers like Henry Flipper was not isolated incidents. It was policy. It was pattern. It was designed. August 13, 1906, Brownsville, Texas. The 25th Infantry Regiment, an all-black unit, is stationed at Fort Brown. These are professional soldiers. Many of them are veterans. They have served for years without incident. But the white residents of Brownsville do not want black soldiers in their town. They make that very clear. Black soldiers are harassed when they go into town. They are refused service at bars and restaurants. They are called every racist slur imaginable. White civilians assault them on the streets, and the soldiers following orders show restraint. They do not retaliate. They do not fight back. They stay disciplined because that is what soldiers do. Then, on the night of August 13th, shots are fired in downtown Brownsville. One white civilian is killed. Another is wounded. Immediately, without any investigation, without any evidence, the town blames the black soldiers. The mayor demands they be removed. White residents form mobs threatening to attack the fort. And here is what actually happened. Later evidence would suggest that white civilians fired those shots themselves to frame the soldiers and get them kicked out of town. But in 1906, nobody cared about evidence. President Theodore Roosevelt, the same man whose life Buffalo soldiers saved at San Juan Hill, made a decision. He ordered the entire battalion dishonorably discharged. 167 men. No trial, no investigation, no due process, just gone. Kicked out of the military with no benefits, no pensions, no honor. Their lives destroyed because white racists needed scapegoats. Some of those men had served for 20 years. They lost everything, their careers, their pensions, their futures, and for over 100 years that dishonorable discharge followed them and their families. It was not until 1972 that the Army even began reviewing the case. It took until 2009 for Congress to pass a resolution acknowledging the injustice, and it was not until 2022, 116 years later, that the Army officially cleared their names. Every single one of those men died in disgrace. Their children grew up with the shame of having fathers dishonorably discharged. Their grandchildren inherited that stain. 167 innocent men, destroyed by a president who owed them his life, because white racists needed scapegoats. Now let me tell you what happened after World War II. The war ends in 1945. Black soldiers come home as veterans. They fought in Europe. They fought in the Pacific. They saw things no human should see. They bled for this country. And Congress passes the GI Bill, the Servicemen's Readjustment Act of 1944. This law promised every veteran access to education, job training, home loans, and unemployment benefits. On paper, it applied to everyone. In practice, it was one of the largest transfers of wealth to white Americans in history, and one of the greatest thefts from black Americans ever perpetrated. Here is how it worked. The GI Bill was administered by local Veterans Administration offices, mostly in the South. Those offices were run by white officials who had total discretion over who got benefits. Black veterans applying for college benefits were told the black colleges were full, which was often true because those colleges were deliberately underfunded and had limited capacity. Meanwhile, white veterans flooded into universities that expanded rapidly to accommodate them. Black veterans applying for job training were steered into low-wage jobs or told no training programs were available in their area. White veterans got training for skilled trades management professional careers. But the most devastating theft was in home loans. The GI Bill offered low-interest mortgages so veterans could buy homes. This is how the white middle class was built. Millions of white veterans bought houses in the new suburbs being constructed across America. Those houses gained value. That wealth passed to their children. That is generational wealth. Black veterans were denied those loans at a rate of 98%. 98%. Banks refused them. The VA refused to back their loans. And even when a black veteran somehow got approved, he could not buy in the suburbs because of redlining. Neighborhoods had racial covenants written into the deeds, no coloreds allowed. So black veterans who had fought the same battles, bled the same blood, were locked out of the single biggest wealth-building opportunity in American history. Let me make this personal. If your grandfather was a World War II veteran, and he was denied a GI Bill home loan, your family lost out on decades of home equity. That house a white veteran bought for $15,000 in 1950 worth $400,000 today. That is generational wealth your family never got. Multiply that by hundreds of thousands of black veterans. That is trillions of dollars in stolen wealth. And people today have the nerve to ask why there is a wealth gap. This is why. They stole it. Legally. Systematically. And then they erase the fact that they did it. Let me show you how deep the erasure goes. Right now, if you go to Italy, to the city of Lucca, you will find a memorial to the 92nd Infantry Division, the Buffalo Soldiers who liberated that city from Nazi occupation. Every year, the people of Lucca hold a ceremony honoring those soldiers. They remember. They teach their children. If you go to France, you will find memorials to the black American soldiers who fought in World War I. The French built monuments to honor them. The French still remember. Now come back to America. How many Buffalo Soldier monuments exist here? Almost none built before the year 2000. Think about that. Buffalo Soldiers served from 1866 to 1951. 85 years, and for most of that time, and for 50 years after America built no monuments to them. The few that exist today were built because black historians, black veterans groups, and black communities fought for decades to get them. The National Park Service did not even mention Buffalo Soldiers at Fort Davis, National Historic Site in Texas, until the 1990s. Fort Davis was a major Buffalo Soldier post. They served there for decades, and the official historical site erased them completely for over a century. When you visit Little Bighorn Battlefield in Montana, what do you learn about Custer's last stand? The heroic white cavalry wiped out by savage Indians. Oh, that is the story. You know what they do not tell you. Black soldiers served as scouts and support troops in those campaigns. They were there. But the story is written as if only white soldiers mattered. This is educational erasure. Deliberate, systematic, and it worked for generations. How many black children grew up never knowing their great-great-grandfather was a Buffalo Soldier? How many families lost that connection to their history? How many people internalized the lie that black people never served, never fought, never earned honor in the military? That ignorance was not accidental, it was policy. Let me tell you how the media erased them. From the 1870s through the 1920s, white newspapers covered the Indian Wars extensively. They wrote about white cavalry units constantly. They made heroes out of men like George Custer, who was actually a reckless officer whose decisions got his men killed. But Custer became a legend. Buffalo soldiers who won battle after battle were mentioned rarely and dismissively. When newspapers did cover them, the language was racist. They called them Negro regiments, colored troops, always with a tone of condescension. Their achievements were buried in back pages, if reported at all. Then came Hollywood. From the 1930s through the 1980s, Hollywood made hundreds of Western films. Cowboys and Indians, cavalry charging to the rescue, brave white soldiers taming the frontier. How many of those films featured buffalo soldiers? Almost none. John Wayne made dozens of Westerns. How many times did he share the screen with black cavalry? Never. Hollywood created an entire mythology of the American West where black soldiers did not exist. Generations of Americans grew up watching those films, internalizing that history. And it was a lie. Buffalo soldiers were 20% of the cavalry forces in the West during the Indian Wars. 1 in 5. But Hollywood made it seem like 0. It was not until 1992 that a major film about buffalo soldiers was even made a TV movie starring Danny Glover, and even that did not get a wide theatrical release. As of 2025, there has still never been a big-budget Hollywood blockbuster about buffalo soldiers. Marvel has made 30-plus superhero movies. Hollywood has made a dozen Westerns in the last 20 years. But a buffalo soldier's epic, too risky. Not enough audience interest. That is what they say. The truth. They do not want to tell a story that reveals how deeply America betrayed black soldiers, because that story indicts the entire system. Now let me show you why this matters right now. Not 50 years ago. Not 100 years ago. Right now. In 2023, the Department of Defense released a report on racial disparities in military justice. The findings were damning. Black service members are disciplined at 2.5 times the rate of white service members for the same infractions. Let me say that again. Same infractions. 2.5 times the rate. Black soldiers are more likely to receive harsher punishments, more likely to be court-martialed, more likely to receive other than honorable discharges. This is not ancient history. This is happening today in the United States military. Black officers make up only 7% of generals, despite being 17% of the total force. The higher you go in rank, the whiter it gets. And when black veterans leave the military and apply for disability benefits from the Veterans Administration, their claims are denied at a rate 30% higher than white veterans. Same injuries, same service-connected disabilities, 30% more denials. Buffalo soldiers were denied pensions. Today's black veterans are denied VA benefits. Same system, same pattern, different century. And people wonder why there is mistrust. Let me tell you about wealth. The median white household in America has $188,000 in total wealth. The median black household has $24,000. That is an 8-to-1 gap. People love to say that is because of choices, because of culture, because black people do not work hard enough. Let me destroy that lie right now. Buffalo soldiers worked. They fought. They saved money. They sent it home to their families. And the system stole it. When they were denied pensions, that was stolen wealth. When World War II veterans were denied GI Bill home loans, that was stolen wealth. When those homes in white suburbs appreciated in value, while black neighborhoods were redlined and destroyed by urban renewal, that was stolen wealth. Every generation, the theft continues. If Tulsa had not been burned in 1921, those black families would be millionaires today. If Rosewood had not been massacred in 1923, those families would own valuable Florida land today. If Buffalo soldiers had received the full pensions and benefits they earned, their descendants would have inherited wealth. This is not about slavery being a long time ago. This goes all the way to 1951, when the last Buffalo Soldier regiments were disbanded. Your grandfather's lifetime. Your father's lifetime. The theft is continuous. The impact is now. Let me talk about reparations. People say it is impossible to calculate. People say it is too complicated. People say you cannot make up for the past. I am going to tell you exactly how you calculate it. For Buffalo Soldiers alone. Take every soldier who was dishonorably discharged without cause. Calculate what his full career pension would have been. Add interest over the decades. Pay it to his descendants. That is a number you can calculate. Take every World War II black veteran who was denied a GI Bill home loan. Calculate what that home would be worth today. Pay it. That is a number you can calculate. Take every Buffalo soldier who earned a Medal of Honor but was passed over because a white officer took credit. Medal of Honor recipients receive a lifetime pension. Calculate how much was stolen. Pay it. These are not abstract concepts. These are document thefts with names attached. Emmanuel Stantz earned a Medal of Honor but died in obscurity with no pension. Henry Flipper was dishonorably discharged and spent 58 years trying to clear his name. 167 soldiers of the 25th Infantry had their lives destroyed by Theodore Roosevelt with no evidence. We have the names, we have the records, we can calculate exactly what is owed. And when someone asks, how do you pay for reparations, ask them this. How did America pay for the GI Bill that built the white middle class? How did America pay for the homeowners loan corporation that redlined black neighborhoods? How did America pay for highways that destroyed black communities? How did America pay for subsidies to white farmers while denying them to black farmers? They found the money. They always find the money when it benefits white Americans. The question is not, can we afford reparations? The question is, will we demand what is owed? And the answer has to be yes. Let me tell you who you are. You are not descendants of victims. You are descendants of warriors who fought 127 battles. You are heirs to soldiers who won the American West but never claimed credit. You are children of faith. Warriors who sang Amazing Grace under fire, who prayed in foxholes while shells exploded, who believed God would make a way when there was no way. Your poverty is not your fault. Your grandfather's pension was stolen. Your father's VA benefits were denied. Your family's home loan was rejected. This is documented theft. Not failure, not a lack of trying. Theft. Let that sink in. Every struggle your family faces, your ancestors faced, not because they were weak, but because America stole from them. Your great-great-grandfather might have been a Buffalo soldier who served 20 years and was denied his pension because of an administrative error. Those errors were not accidents. They were policy. Your great-grandmother might have been a military wife who watched her husband fight for a country that would not let him eat in the same restaurant as white soldiers. That is not ancient history. That shaped your family's trajectory. That is why you rent instead of own. That is why you started with nothing when white families started with inherited wealth. And now you know. Now you understand. The system was designed to steal from you. But here is what they did not count on. They did not count on you finding out. They did not count on the truth being preserved. They did not count on the warrior's blood still flowing in your veins. Your ancestors were engineers. Henry Flipper built infrastructure still used today. Your ancestors were explorers. They mapped territories no white soldier would enter. Your ancestors were protectors. They defended mail routes so America could communicate. Your ancestors were liberators. They freed Italian cities from Nazis while America segregated them. Your ancestors were faithful. They sang hymns in foxholes. They trusted God when their country betrayed them. They did all of this while white officers refused to serve with them, while white civilians tried to lynch them in uniform, while white presidents dishonorably discharged them without trial. That strength is in your DNA. That faith is your inheritance. You carry the blood of people who survived the Middle Passage slavery, Jim Crow, and 85 years of military service under a system designed to break them. And they did not break. You are proof. You are here. You are alive. You are learning your history. That is not accident. That is purpose. God preserved your ancestors through the Middle Passage. Why? So you could be here today. God brought them through slavery. Why? So you could be free. God sustained them through Jim Crow and 85 years of betrayal. Why? Because you have a mission to reveal this stolen history, to demand recognition and reparations, to pass this truth to the next generation so it can never be erased again. Buffalo soldiers sang hymns before battle because they knew something. They were not fighting for America's approval. They were fighting because God called them to protect. They were warriors of faith, not just warriors of force. And you carry that same calling. You are anointed to reveal truth. You are called to demand justice. You are equipped with your ancestors' courage. You are destined to see this legacy restored. This is not about the past. This is about right now, about what you do with this knowledge, about whether you let them continue the erasure or whether you become the generation that says enough. No more silence, no more forgetting, no more accepting crumbs when we are owed the whole inheritance. If this truth has shaken you, if this has made you angry, if this has made you proud, I need you to do something right now. Comment the words, "Buffalo soldiers" below. Let me see who is ready to carry this truth forward. Hit that like button if you are done with the lies they taught you in school. Share this video with someone who needs to know. Share it with a veteran in your family. Share it with someone who thinks Black people never served their country. Share it with your children so they grow up knowing their heritage. Do not let them erase us again. Your voice matters. Your share matters. This is not just a video. This is a movement to reclaim stolen history. And you are part of it right now. Now let me tell you what you need to do beyond this video. Subscribe to this channel because we are exposing hundreds more stories just like this. Stories they buried, truths they erased, history they stole. Every week we are bringing you the real history of Black America, the triumphs they hid, the wealth they stole, the heroes they erased. You need this information. Your children need this information. Subscribe so you never miss it. Second demand, a Buffalo Soldiers movie. A real one. A big budget Hollywood film that tells the full truth. Go to social media right now and tag Netflix, tag Disney, tag every major studio and say, "We deserve this story." Say, "We demand this story." Say, "You will not let them bury this any longer." Make noise. Make it so loud they cannot ignore it. Third, support the Buffalo Soldiers National Museum in Houston, Texas. That museum exists because Black veterans and historians fought to preserve this history. They need support. They need visitors. They need funding. If you cannot visit, donate. If you cannot donate, share their information. Keep that institution alive because it is one of the few places telling the full truth. Fourth, contact your representatives in Congress. Demand a full review of every Buffalo Soldier pension that was denied. Demand reparations for the families of soldiers who were dishonorably discharged without cause. Demand recognition for the soldiers who earned medals of honor but were passed over. This is not ancient history. Some descendants are still alive. Justice can still be done. Do not let anyone tell you it is too late. It is never too late for justice. This is not about anger. This is about accountability. This is not about revenge. This is about restoration. This is not about dwelling in the past. This is about correcting the present, because the theft is still happening, the erasure is still happening, and if we do not fight, it will keep happening to the next generation and the next. You are the keeper of this truth now. You are the one who decides whether this story dies in silence or explodes into the light. Your great-great-grandfather was a buffalo soldier. He fought for a country that betrayed him. But you will restore his honor. Tell your children this story before they learn the lies in school. Tell them their ancestors were warriors. Tell them their poverty was not failure, but theft. Tell them they come from a line of people who could not be broken. And tell them to pass it on. That is how we win. Not just by knowing the truth, but by making sure it can never be buried again. Father God, we come before you with gratitude and grief. Gratitude for preserving the testimony of the Buffalo Soldiers. Grief for the injustice they suffered. We thank you for Sergeant Emmanuel Stantz, the first Medal of Honor recipient, who saved children while his country refused to honor his name. We thank you for Lieutenant Henry Flipper, who endured false accusation and dishonor, but never lost his dignity. We thank you for the 92nd Infantry Division, who liberated Lucca with hymns on their lips and faith in their hearts. We thank you for the Montford Point Marines, who served in silence but are invisible no more. We thank you for the 9th and 10th Cavalry, who fought 127 battles and never broke. We thank you for every Buffalo Soldier, whose name we do not know, but whose sacrifice you remember. We pray for justice, Lord, for every stolen pension to be repaid, for every erased name to be remembered, for every denied benefit to be restored. Let the truth come to light in courtrooms in Congress, in classrooms in Hollywood. Let this generation see the full story of what was stolen and demand what is owed. We pray for awakening, for every person watching this to understand their warrior heritage, for children to grow up knowing their ancestors were soldiers of courage and faith, for textbooks to finally tell the truth, for monuments to be built in every city where Buffalo Soldiers served. We pray for courage. Give us boldness to demand reparations without apology. Give us persistence to fight until justice is done. Give us unity to stand together as our ancestors stood faithful under fire, unbroken by oppression. Vindicate the memory of the Buffalo Soldiers. Restore honor to their names. Heal the wounds their families carry. And give us wisdom to never let this history be erased again. In Jesus' name, amen. Walk in truth. Demand justice. Honor the fallen. These are dark history stories. Until next time, remember the Buffalo Soldiers. Demand reparations. Fight for your legacy. The battle is not over. It is your turn to serve.